The Declaration Commander Zix Theta floated in the crystalline command chamber of the hegemony's flagship. The inevitable dawn. His translucent body pulsed with colors that his species used for communication, currently showing deep purples of contemplation, mixed with orange streaks of anticipation. 3,000 years had passed since the galactic hegemony first discovered Earth. And today, the waiting period would finally end. The massive chamber housed representatives from all 12 member species of the hegemony. The crystalline minds hovered like living diamonds, their thoughts creating rainbow patterns in the air. The void dancers moved through dimensions that others could barely perceive, their forms shifting between solid and shadow. The binary collective stood in perfect formation, their mechanical bodies humming with shared consciousness. "The time has come," Zix Theta announced, his voice resonating through both sound and telepathic wavelengths. "Display the current status of Earth." A holographic projection materialized in the center of the chamber, showing a small blue planet orbiting an unremarkable yellow star. Data streams flowed around the image, displaying everything their long-range sensors had detected over the centuries. The information was disappointingly consistent with their initial assessment. War Coordinator Malvex of the Void Dancers materialized fully into their dimension, her smoky form solidifying into something resembling a mantis made of starlight. 3 millennia ago we offered these humans mercy. We found them when they had barely discovered nuclear fission. They possessed no spacefaring capability, no energy shields, no consciousness expansion technology. We granted them 3,000 years to evolve to join us willingly. The binary collective spoke in perfect unison, their 1,000 voices creating an eerie harmony. Statistical analysis confirms minimal technological advancement. Current Earth technology remains bound by primitive physics. No detection of quantum manipulation. No evidence of dimensional awareness. Probability of successful resistance, 0.003%. Zix Theta's colors shifted to a pattern of determination, mixed with what his species considered compassion. The hegemony was not cruel. They had absorbed hundreds of civilizations over the eons, and most had eventually thrived under their guidance. Earth would be no different. The humans would resist at first, as all young species did, but they would learn that the hegemony brought order, purpose, and advancement. "Have we detected any defensive preparations?" asked Silenthia of the crystalline minds, her diamond form refracting light into complex patterns that conveyed both curiosity and dismissal. Intelligence Overseer Cratch, a being that looked like a sentient equation given form, processed billions of data points in nanoseconds. Negative. Earth maintains the same nation-state divisions observed centuries ago. Their most advanced spacecraft barely reach their outer planets. Military technology remains focused on projectile weapons and chemical explosives. They still burn fossil fuels for energy. Most amusing, they continue to engage in conflicts among themselves over resource distribution and ideological differences. The chamber filled with various expressions of amusement from the assembled species. The humans hadn't even achieved planetary unity, let alone prepared for an interstellar conflict. It would be like watching insects attempt to stop a supernova. "Then we proceed," Zix Theta declared. "Transmit the formal declaration. Give them one final opportunity to surrender with dignity." The message was crafted in all 7,000 languages the hegemony had identified on Earth. It was transmitted on every frequency, through every medium they knew humans could receive. The declaration was simple, direct, and allowed no room for misinterpretation. People of Earth. 3,000 years ago, the galactic hegemony discovered your world. In our mercy, we granted you time to develop, to prove yourselves worthy of partnership rather than absorption. That time has now expired. Your technological progress has been insufficient. Your species remains divided and primitive. You have 48 Earth hours to formally surrender your world to the hegemony. Compliance will result in peaceful integration and eventual elevation. Resistance will result in immediate pacification. Your leaders may respond on any frequency. We are listening. The command chamber fell silent as they waited for Earth's response. Based on their experience with thousands of worlds, they expected one of several standard reactions. Panic was most common, followed by desperate attempts at negotiation. Some species tried to hide or flee. The more primitive ones sometimes didn't respond at all. Unable to comprehend what was happening, what they received 47 minutes later was none of these things. "Commander," The communications specialist, a being of pure energy named Flux, pulsed in confusion. We are receiving responses from Earth. Multiple responses. Millions of them. Military communications? Six Theta asked, his colors shifting to alertness. No, Commander. They appear to be laughing. The chamber fell silent. Every being present, regardless of their form or method of perception, focused on the incoming transmissions. The sound that filled the space was unmistakably laughter. Not the bitter laughter of despair or the hysterical laughter of madness, but genuine, warm, amused laughter. It came from every corner of Earth, in every language, from every culture. Mixed with the laughter were messages, translated by the hegemony's universal processors. Finally. We were starting to think you'd forgotten about us. 3,000 years. Do you know how hard it's been to keep the secret? The betting pools are going crazy. Johnson owes me $50. Welcome to Earth. We've been preparing the party for centuries. Malvex's form flickered between dimensions in confusion. This is not a recognized response pattern. Are they suffering from mass psychological breakdown? Before anyone could answer, a formal transmission came through on the primary diplomatic channel. The image that appeared showed a middle-aged human woman in what appeared to be formal attire, standing in front of a window overlooking a blue sky. The nameplate on her desk read, President Sarah Chen, United Earth Administration. She was smiling. Greetings, Galactic Hegemony, President Chen said, her voice warm and welcoming. On behalf of humanity, I want to thank you for your patience. 3,000 years is a long time to wait, and we appreciate you honoring the original agreement. We accept your terms. Six Theta's colors swirled in confusion. You accept surrender? President Chen's smile widened. Oh no, Commander. We accept your terms for formal contact. The waiting period is over. Humanity is ready to meet you properly. We've prepared quite the welcome. Our entire species has been looking forward to this day for 3 millennia. You see, Commander, when your probe first made contact with our ancestors 3,000 years ago, it didn't just deliver a warning. It delivered hope. It told us we weren't alone. And it gave us something even more valuable, a deadline. The transmission continued, but something else was happening. Sensors throughout the hegemony fleet began detecting energy signatures from Earth that hadn't been there moments before. Massive power sources were coming online. Space around Earth seemed to shimmer. That's impossible, Cratch stated, his equation form fluctuating wildly. These readings suggest technology that shouldn't exist according to our surveillance. President Chen continued speaking, her tone becoming almost playful. We've been very careful, Commander. Every generation of humanity for 3,000 years has been told the secret. We knew you were watching, so we kept our true capabilities hidden. We developed our technology in places your sensors couldn't reach. We practiced patience on a scale our species had never achieved before. And we waited, because we knew that when you came back you wouldn't come as conquerors. You'd come as equals. The laughter from Earth continued. But now it was accompanied by something else. Music. Celebrations. The sound of 8 billion humans rejoicing as one. You see, President Chen said, leaning forward slightly, the greatest joke in the universe is about to unfold. And the punchline? Well, you'll understand that when you get here. Safe travels, Commander. We'll see you in 18 days. Oh, and don't worry about bringing weapons. You won't need them. But do bring your sense of humor. You're going to need that. The transmission ended, leaving the hegemony's command chamber in stunned silence. For the first time in eons, they faced something completely outside their experience. Earth wasn't surrendering. Earth wasn't fighting. Earth was laughing. And somehow that was the most unsettling response of all. The revelation 18 days passed in a haze of confusion and speculation aboard the hegemony fleet. Commander Six Theta had run every possible scenario through their quantum predictors, and none of them explained Earth's behavior. The humans continued their celebrations, broadcasting music, art, and messages of welcome into space. Not once had they shown any sign of military preparation or panic. As the inevitable dawn and its escort fleet of 2,000 vessels dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of Earth's solar system, every sensor array immediately went active. What they found defied all logic. Commander, Flux pulsed urgently. I'm detecting massive energy signatures throughout the system, but they're not weapons. They appear to be beacons. Indeed, the entire solar system had been transformed into a welcoming committee. Massive holographic displays floated in space, showing images of Earth's cultures, its nature, its people. Messages in every hegemony language floated past. Welcome, friends. We've waited so long. The universe's greatest party starts here. But more disturbing were the ships, thousands of them, hidden behind sophisticated cloaking fields that were now deliberately dropping. These weren't the primitive rockets their surveillance had shown. These were vessels that matched, perhaps even exceeded, hegemony technology. Impossible, the binary collective computed. No species advances this quickly in secret. The energy signatures alone should have been detectable. A small shuttle departed from Earth, moving toward the hegemony fleet at a leisurely pace. It bore no weapons, no shields, just a simple white hull with the words "Welcome Wagon" painted on its side in friendly letters. Theta found himself at a loss. Protocol dictated that unknown vessels approaching should be destroyed or detained, but nothing about this situation fit any protocol. "Allow them to dock," he finally commanded, his colors swirling with uncertainty. The human delegation that entered the inevitable dawn's reception chamber was small, just 5 individuals led by President Chen herself. They wore no armor, carried no weapons. Instead, they brought containers that their scans showed contained what appeared to be food and beverages. "Commander Theta," President Chen said with a warm smile, somehow pronouncing his name perfectly despite human vocal limitations. "It's an honor to finally meet you in person. We've brought coffee and cookies. Our historical records suggested that first contact goes better with refreshments." Malvix materialized fully, her starlight form towering over the humans. "You dare mock the hegemony? Your world is surrounded. Your fate is sealed." President Chen's smile never wavered. "Oh, we're not mocking anyone. We're celebrating. You see, the hegemony has given humanity the greatest gift any species could receive: purpose, unity, and the longest practical joke in galactic history." She gestured to one of her companions, who activated a small holographic projector. An image appeared showing an ancient human, dressed in simple clothes, standing in what appeared to be a primitive laboratory. 3,000 years ago, Chen began, when your probe made first contact, it didn't just find random humans. It found a gathering of our world's greatest minds, scientists, philosophers, leaders who had come together for what we called the First Global Conference. Your message was received not by scattered primitive peoples, but by humans who were already asking the biggest questions. Are we alone? What's our purpose? How do we unite our species? The image shifted, showing generations of humans passing down knowledge, working in hidden facilities, teaching their children in secret. Your warning gave us everything we needed, Chen continued. A common enemy to unite against, a deadline to work toward, a reason to put aside our differences. Within 50 years of your message, humanity achieved total planetary unity, not through conquest, but through shared purpose. We knew we had 3,000 years to prepare, and we knew you'd be watching. Cratch's equation form calculated rapidly, but how did you hide your advancement? Another human, introduced as Dr. James Okonkwo, stepped forward. We developed our technology inside the Earth itself. In pocket dimensions we learned to create. Every generation, millions of humans went underground, not to hide, but to build. On the surface, we maintained the illusion of slow progress. We kept having small wars, political disputes, economic struggles, all carefully orchestrated to make you believe we were still primitive. But why? Theta asked, his colors now showing genuine curiosity rather than confusion. President Chen's expression became almost tender. Because we studied your history, Commander. The hegemony conquers or absorbs species they see as inferior, but they form alliances with equals. We needed 3,000 years not just to match your technology, but to understand it, to improve upon it, and most importantly, to ensure that when we finally met, it would be as friends, not as conquerors and conquered. She paused, then delivered the punchline they'd all been waiting 3 millennia to share. The greatest joke, Commander, is that Earth hasn't spent 3,000 years preparing for war. We've spent it preparing for peace. Every human alive today has been raised knowing this moment would come. We've studied every species in the hegemony, learned your languages, your cultures, your hopes and fears. We know the crystalline minds appreciate harmonic mathematical poetry, so we've composed symphonies and equations. We know the void dancers value interdimensional art, so we've created galleries that exist in 7 dimensions simultaneously. We've prepared gifts, cultural exchanges, and technological innovations specifically tailored to each member of your federation. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Then Dr. Okonkwo activated another display, showing the true extent of human development. Cities that existed in parallel dimensions, ships that could fold space-time like origami, energy sources that drew power from the quantum foam itself, medical technology that could adapt to any biological or energy-based life form. We've also solved several problems that our research suggests have plagued the hegemony, Dr. Okonkwo added. The entropy cascade affecting the crystalline mind's homeworld. The dimensional anchor instability that limits void dancer reproduction. The quantum consciousness fragmentation that sometimes affects the binary collective. We have solutions for all of them. Gifts freely given to our new friends. For the first time in his existence, Commander Zixitheta experienced something his species had no color for. Later humans would teach him the word, wonder. You transformed your entire civilization into a 3,000-year preparation for friendship? He asked. President Chen nodded. The universe is vast and often hostile. When we learned we weren't alone, we had a choice. We could have spent 3 millennia building weapons, or we could spend it building bridges. We chose bridges. But we also knew that bridges built from positions of weakness don't last, so we became strong, not to fight but to stand as equals. She reached into one of the containers they'd brought and pulled out what appeared to be a simple cloth banner. On it was embroidered an image of Earth and symbols representing each hegemony species, intertwined in a pattern that somehow seemed both ancient and futuristic. This has been carried by human leaders for 3,000 years, she said, offering it to Zixitheta. Each generation added their own thread, their own hope that one day we would stand here not as enemies but as the beginning of something greater. The hegemony seeks order through absorption. Humanity offers something different. Growth through diversity, strength through friendship, and evolution through laughter. The binary collective processed this information and spoke. You propose an alliance? We propose more than that, President Chen replied. We propose that the hegemony and Earth together explore a question that neither of us can answer alone. What comes next? You've spent eons perfecting order. We've spent 3 millennia perfecting surprise. Together we might just discover something neither of us expected. It was then that Zixitheta did something that surprised even himself. He laughed. It wasn't a sound his species typically made, but somehow in that moment it felt right. The laughter spread through the chamber as each species found their own way to express the emotion. The crystalline minds chimed in harmonious amusement. The void dancers flickered between dimensions in what could only be described as giggling. Even the binary collective's processors hummed with something approaching humor. The humans got us, Malvek said, her form shimmering with what her species considered mirth. 3,000 years of surveillance and we never saw it coming. President Chen raised a cup of coffee and a toast. To the greatest joke in the universe that the best way to defeat an enemy is to turn them into a friend. And to the punchline that laughter, not weapons, is the most powerful force in the cosmos. As the hegemony fleet accepted Earth's hospitality and began what would become the most celebrated alliance in galactic history, the universe learned an important lesson. Humanity's greatest strength wasn't their technology or their resilience. It was their ability to see the humor in existence, to find joy in the face of challenge, and to turn even the threat of annihilation into an opportunity for the ultimate practical joke. Epilogue 1 year later, the Galactic Council, formerly the Hegemony, convened for its first meeting with full human membership. The agenda was full of serious matters: trade routes, scientific exchanges, and collaborative exploration of distant galaxies. But before the formal proceedings began, a tradition started that day on the inevitable dawn continued. Commander Zixitheta, now bearing the human-gifted title of Admiral of Cosmic Relations, called the meeting to order with words that would have seemed impossible just a year before. Before we begin, does anyone have any good jokes to share? The chamber erupted in various forms of laughter, as species that had never known humor before shared their attempts at comedy. Most were terrible. Some were surprisingly clever. All were welcome. Because humanity had taught the universe a vital truth. Civilizations that could laugh together could face anything together. And in the vast, often cold expanse of space, laughter was the warmth that made the journey worthwhile. As President Chen often said in her speeches across the galaxy, we waited 3,000 years for a punchline, It was worth every second. And so humanity took its place among the stars, not as conquerors or the conquered, but as the species that taught the universe to laugh. The greatest joke ever told had become the foundation for the greatest alliance ever forged. The universe would never be the same. And that was the point.